Hey guys, what's up? My name is Steven, also known as Steven's Fun World, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 most hardest cuphead bosses. So this list is basically just based on my opinion, or how tough the boss is. Did any of these bosses made you rage quit? Let me know in the comments. Alright, let's get on to number 10. Especially being one of the first bosses you meet, Remy and Krogs are one of the most toughest bosses in the game. Especially on the third phase, I had a lot of trouble with. But the second phase doesn't give me a lot of trouble at all. Unlike most bosses, Rumor Honeybottom's boss fight is an auto-scoring level. The second phase isn't that bad, it's just avoiding some lasers and avoiding the security bee. But in the final phase, the Queen Bee herself turns herself into a plane. Now, Jimmy the Great is one of those bosses that gave me the absolute pain. In his first phase, Jimmy will shoot out some projectiles from his treasure chest, like for example, these swords, these little sarcophagus cats. And don't you dare get me started on the Droll League, that is the absolute worst. You guys, I'm gonna win, just watch. King Dice is the second to last boss of the first game. But before you fight him, you have to take on a gauntlet of mini-bosses, like Mangosteen, Mr. Chimes, Mr. Wheezy, Pip and Dot, Tipsy Troop, and so much more. Calamaria has a powder turtle fight. She will poke you through turtles throwing spikes, pufferfish throwing through the air, and ghosts coming out of her mouth. I guess you could say that's a dead attack. But in the second phase, she gets sapped by some eels and she turns into a sea monster. And for the final phase, her head comes off and the fight becomes a side-scroller. Let's take a break from the first game and move on to the DLC with Mortimer Freeze. I had a tough time beating this boss, and this attack gets on my nerves sometimes with these little icicles. And in the second stage, it's a snow monster that rolls around, shoots spikes out of the ground, and turns into a freaking refrigerator. Then for the final phase, the snow monster explodes and there's a giant snowflake. I wouldn't say the devil is the hardest boss in the game, but I know I just had to include him in this list. But he does all kinds of attacks. He transforms into creatures, he shoots projectiles with his pitchfork, and there are some little henchman demons coming after you. But in the final phase, he gets bigger and you have to shoot his eyes to win the game. Pepe the Clown, in my opinion, has to be one of the most toughest bosses I've ever faced in the game. It took me 5 hours to beat this boss. That is a lot of time. Well, here we go with this. Dr. Cut's robot has to be one of the most hardest bosses in the entire game. And in order to take out the first phase, you need to shoot each area of the robot. I've struggled with this boss so many times that I had to do simple mode before doing it on regular mode. But the second stage isn't that bad, it's just avoiding the robot's head. But for the final phase, you'll see the Mad Doctor himself shooting out a knockoff Chaos Emerald. Here it is, everybody, the boss that took the whole cake today. The one that gave me the most hardest one to deal with. Grim freaking Matchstick. This boss was so hard to beat. It took me a whole week to beat him. And every time I even try to fire as much as I can, I always end up in start over. And again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And again.
How the heck does this boss is hard?